Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WrestleRant Radio here today for Thursday, May 16, 2024. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. We got a very special guest on today's WrestleRant Radio, as we have for the last couple of weeks now, the last couple of months, actually. We got one half of the TNA World Knockouts Tag Team Champions, Alisha Edwards. Now, this interview was recorded prior to her becoming champion earlier this month of their Under Siege show, but she talks a lot about wanting to become a champion in TNA for the first time, her time in TNA, the company itself, the Knockouts division, and a whole lot more. The article, or rather the interview, will also be available in article form, is what I meant to say, over on dailyddt.com pretty soon, in the next couple days, so check it out over there. And the video version of the interview also available soon on the YouTube channel, probably by Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at some point in the coming days, so check that out as well. We also have Mr. Marceau on the back end of the show, per usual, talking all things Raw, SmackDown, King and Queen of the Ring, and an update on AEW. Are they staying? Are they going from Warner Brothers Discovery? They were not mentioned at the Upfronts earlier this week. What does that mean for AEW? All that talk and so much more here on today's WrestleRant Radio. New episodes every single Thursday on all your usual podcast platforms: iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Podbean, all that usual great stuff. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss a new episode every single Thursday. So without further ado, enjoy my exclusive interview with one half of the TNA World Knockouts Tag Team Champions, Alisha Edwards. Graham G. Matthews here with fansite at dailyddt.com. Today we're talking to TNA star Alisha Edwards. You got a lot of tapings just wrapping up in Las Vegas. You got a lot of other pay-per-views coming up as well. Rebellion was last week, and as we speak right now, Alisha, how's it going? Thanks for taking the time.
It's great. Thanks for having. I mean, you must have saw the system take over Rebellion and still have all the titles in our hands right now, so we're doing pretty good.
Is it safe to say, you mentioned that, you guys have all the championships right now, Moose still the TNA World Champion, coming off his win over Nick Nemeth, Eddie Edwards, obviously your husband, and Brian Myers, still the World Tag Team Champions. Is it safe to say that the tag titles are now in your sights with your new partner, Masha Slamovich?
100%. 100%. We're going for it, so it's only a matter of time.
Is that part of the partnership? Is that why you guys are kind of forging this alliance? Because you guys have had your battles in the past, but kind of putting that aside to look at the greater focus of becoming a champion in TNA for the first time.
Yes, I'm going to say it's just a business opportunity for me. Masha needs a a partner, and I need a title for the system. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I know Masha is a force in the Knockouts division. So what better way to win my first title with someone like Masha on the side of me?
And the time that you guys have been together so far, which hasn't been very long, obviously, just joining forces at Rebellion. We're going to be seeing more of that at the upcoming TNA tapings that are going to be airing over the next couple of weeks. But how have you noticed your personalities clashing or not clashing so far, as whether it be outside of the ring or inside the ring as partners?
I mean, like I said, it's a business opportunity. So even if we don't clash, I mean, we're going in to win gold. And I mean, I know that's on Masha's mind right now, is for her to get her titles back, and my opportunity to win my first title in TNA. So, I mean, that's all we're thinking about. And I think that's where we're different from the rest. Like, we're not worried about anything else besides doing what we need to do.
And obviously, her having the experience as a former tag team champion gives you guys an advantage, right?
100%. I mean, Masha knows what she's doing, and I know what I'm doing after being with the system, and we're dominating pay-per-view after pay-per-view. I mean, it's just going to keep going above and beyond.
I mean, talking about that, just backtracking a little bit, we had the return of TNA back in January after years of Impact, and obviously you and Eddie have been in TNA long enough to have been there when it was first TNA, then Impact, and now TNA again. For you, Alicia, like, what does that mean to get the TNA initials back? Like, does that change anything for you? And do you have that nostalgia of having previously competed in TNA years ago?
I literally came at like the last end of where it was TNA.
Yeah.
That's when it was I forget what we like.
GFW or whatever, right?
Yes, yes. I think that's like kind of where I started. So I wasn't really lucky enough to kind of get what Eddie kind of got. So I think that was special for TNA to come back and for me to see the whole from it not being TNA, from going through multiple, I don't know, so to speak, office people or, companies throughout the years. I think it's just been a great thing to see the development of where we came from to where we are now. So I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, just talking about the development and the evolution of the division in that time. I mean, the division has had a lot of different names in that time period from when you first joined 9, 10 years ago to where it is now. How have you seen the division evolve from, I mean, there were points where there were only a few women in the division, including yourself, and then, a lot of women, some women we're seeing elsewhere now. Just yourself, as far as your perspective on how the division is, how far it's grown in those last 9, 10 years in the time that you've been there.
I mean, I think it's great to see now that we can kind of prove that the women can do what the men can do. Like we've had like the Ultimate X now, we've had Queen of the Mountain, we've had all those matches at the Monsters Ball, like those type of matches where not a lot of people can highlight the women as much as we do. I think that kind of proves that we've kind of developed and kind of show that we're not going nowhere. Like I feel like when I was a fan of women's wrestling, the Knockouts were doing things that nobody else was doing, and our hardcore fans are going to believe that and they're just going to keep up with us. And I think that's exactly what we're doing. We're just nailing each and every opportunity that's given us to the Knockouts, and we're killing it, man.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking to your own development as well. I mean, not only has the division grown a long way in those 10 years, but you yourself as well. I mean, in the last 10 years, coming a long way as being a big part of that division, both in the ring as a manager and all these different stables that Eddie's been a part of as well, joining forces on television, I'm sure, which is easy to work with him on TV. But just speaking as your own development, looking back 9, 10 years ago to when you first joined TNA Impact, GFW, whatever it was at that point, how do you see your own evolution and your thoughts and how far you've come since then?
I think it's been great to see. I sometimes don't kind of see it myself, but it's very rewarding to kind of see my peers see it and like kind of like tell me and like pull me aside and be like, Lish, you've kind of like been killing it. You've been putting the work in. And I mean, it's very emotional. I feel like I'm a very emotional person, but like I feel like it's very nice, I guess, to hear people kind of put me over. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. But I mean, it's been great. Like I would even say the last year has been really good for me. Like, I mean, they didn't know what to do with me like pre-COVID. I didn't know what to do with myself, and then Wrestle House came, and I think that's kind of where they found like my real personality, and then it kind of just evolved after that. And then Eddie, like, turned into a bad guy, and I like the bad guy vibe. So like I think it's just kind of been like a natural evolution that is kind of just blossoming as it happened.
Yeah, the Wrestle House stuff, like you said, was a real turning point a few years ago, and becoming the bad guy, the bad girl on television. For me as a fan, long overdue. Just having seen your work in Northeast Wrestling, New England Championship Wrestling. I'm from the New England area, so I was seeing your work pre-TNA, and you thrived in that bad guy, bad girl role 10, 15 years ago. So getting to see that now, it's cool to see. Did you kind of feel similar in a way where it's like, I need to be able to do this on television at some point? We're seeing that now, but I just feel like it's coming at the right time, obviously, but I'm surprised we didn't see it sooner, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I think like when I was the good girl, it was hard to kind of present what Lish really stood for on TV, and I think that was where like where what I meant by like they really didn't know what to do with me. And then Wrestle House really was just all personality, and I think that's where they're like, oh wait, you're actually relatable, and we can work with something. And I think that's kind of thing, but honestly, I think my strong suit was the bad girl vibe, and I think it just happened at the right time. And you're totally right about that. Like I feel like if we pushed this a year ago or 2 years ago, or as soon as Eddie turned, it wouldn't be so good as it is now, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'm talking like the Barbie girl theme song days. Like we're talking like a long time ago. Like that's how far back we're talking with the original evolution
Yes.
of the bad girl, bad guy character from, NECW and NEW and stuff like that. So again, like I said, it's cool to see on TV now. Does it make it easier to be working, obviously the last couple of years with Eddie on the show, for him to kind of bring that out of you and vice versa as well?
Yeah, and not just Eddie, but like we're really good friends with Myers and Moose, and I think that kind of just makes everything a lot sweeter. You know what I mean? And it also makes things a lot easier. And I also think it makes everything feel more natural when we go out there. So I think it's just a good vibe. We're very different in our own ways, but very similar in our goals and what we want from the company and stuff like that. So I think it's just a really good stable in and outside of the ring. And I mean, I couldn't be happier.
You talk about, looking ahead and setting the sights on the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championship. But to look back even 6 months ago, the TNA Knockouts Championship, you had an opportunity at that against Trinity. I think it was Turning Point, one of those events, a
Yes.
real breakout event for you, a breakout match for you, and a really, really good match. Talk about what that match meant for you in your career and what you gained from that performance against a notable name like Trinity.
I mean, I would never thought that I would be able to wrestle Trin, like especially the fact that she was at WWE for so long and then surprise came to TNA. And then the fact that I got to do a match with her, not only on a pay-per-view, but like in New York, where it was like the easiest place for me to be able to just do my vibe. So I think
Mhm.
it worked perfectly for me. But I mean, I also feel like it gave me the confidence that I needed to make sure that like I know like I no matter if I'm like in the top of the women's matches or like in the forefront of the division, like I do have my spot and I prove that it is my spot. Like I work hard, I try to do whatever is needed and whatever opportunity is given to me. And I think after that match, not only did I prove that to the locker room, but I think I also proved it to the fans.
Yeah, no, definitely. And again, you've had a lot of those sort of matches in the last 10 years where you've really proven yourself in the ring, but that more so than any of them, especially being on a bigger stage, like you said, in New York, on a pay-per-view at Turning Point, and against the notable name in Trinity. And just speaking of like names like her, not just her specifically, but coming to TNA, what do you think that says about the TNA Knockouts division? That they're using TNA as far as to kind of rebuild themselves and prove that they can go with the likes of you and Jordan Grace and Deanna Prazo has obviously since now moved on, but TNA is the place they're going to kind of make a name for themselves and working with great talent such as yourself and everyone else in the division.
Yeah, and a lot of times they come from like or I would say a toxic relationship we would call it. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of the times not only do they get that like in their matches, but I also think a lot of confidence is come more on like not just in the ring but outside the ring, you know what I mean? And I feel like very my heart gets really warm when that happens, and it happens a lot, you know what I mean, where not only do they want the freedom of creative or like freedom to do what they want to do, or they've been held down for however long wherever they worked. I think that's where I enjoy it, where people want to come to just be free, and I think that's a good vibe to have, you know what I mean? Like not take work serious as in where it affects your everyday life. So I think that's kind of what makes me happy, not only, to rebuild their confidence in the ring, but outside.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like that freedom vibe is a big part of TNA's appeal, not only from like a backstage point of view, but also from a point of view perspective, just watching the product compared to some other alternatives out there. Has that kind of remained consistent in your time in TNA? Obviously, a lot of regime changes in the past 10 years, but as far as that vibe of the freedom and stuff that you get to do and input that you have and stuff like that in the last 10 years, or has it been kind of changes, periods of changes in that time?
No, I think since I've been here, we've always had the freedom. I think it was just more so of like the morale of the locker room being so good. I think right now our locker room has been very well for the past few years, and I think that helped get people to kind of jump ship and come to TNA. So I think that's where the change, I would say, more so on the freedom, is just the morale has been like I would say when I first got here, it wasn't so good. I mean, that was when, things were shifting and Global Force took over,
Yeah.
and then, things happened. But I think the morale has just gotten really good to the point where it makes people want to work here, and that's just great to see.
Yeah. And as we wind down here, looking at your own career again, is this the final form of Alisha Edwards, what you've been building towards for the last 9 years in TNA? Or obviously there's always more to come, looking to capture championship gold, but is this the kind of final form of what you've been building towards for a while, or just another step as part of that evolution?
I think it's just another step. I think I'm just getting started. Like, you know what I mean? I think like what we have with the system is going great. And I think that, it can only get bigger and better. You know what I mean? So I think it's just the starting point.
And in the last 9 years, have you had a favorite match that you've had so far, and anyone else that you still want to work going forward on the TNA roster that you haven't had a chance to work with yet?
I mean, we have a lot of knockouts that just fairly came in. Ash by Elegance would be awesome to be able to, like, get in the ring with Zaya Brookside. There's a Steph DeLander just killed it on the pay-per-view this weekend. So I mean, I think with the door always open and a lot of people coming in and out, I think it just gives some new dream matches and some opportunities. So I'm down for anything, man. I'm ready.
Is that Trinity match still your number one, or is there another match that stands out to you?
I would say the Trin match for my career-wise, and I also loved, I just talked about this earlier, about the Monsters Ball for the Daphne show. That was also one of my faves. But also my first ever like pay-per-view with TNA was the Full Metal Mayhem with me and Eddie Edwards versus Angel and Davey Richards. So I would say that would kind of be a moment too. I would kind of.
Yeah, no, that was 7 years ago. That's crazy.
I think we won too, right? Yes, we definitely won. So not only was that my first, but we definitely won too.
Yeah, no, and you guys went over as well. That's pretty cool. It's kind of hard to, start on a note like that. I mean, when you work at such a high with your husband winning on a pay-per-view, I mean, obviously winning championship gold is the next step, but it's like, how can you top that? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it was my first one. I was so nervous, but being able to do it with them three, like, the professionals they are, it was a great moment. And for sure, something to kind of just go and kill it with, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. But like I said, hopefully the tag team titles are in your future as well, with Masha going to be challenging for those very soon, I'm sure, as we'll be finding out on TNA television every single Thursday as it airs on TNA Insiders, Access TV, all that other great stuff. I told Eddie this a couple years ago when we last chatted, but you guys, whenever anyone asked me as far as any wrestlers you've met in public, my favorite story to share is running into you guys in Salem about a decade ago. And you guys could not have been cooler. It was right before Halloween, and I was getting on the train, and I saw you and Eddie. I'm like, that
was you. Yeah,
that was me. Yes, I appreciate you remembering. And I was like,
I
always tell people, as far as you guys were like the nicest people. It wasn't a long interaction, but you guys were very nice to take time out of a random Friday night in Salem, Mass, to take a picture and chat for like a quick second. So wanted to thank you for that as well.
Of course.
And it's always great to see how far you guys have come in that time. Continue killing it, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
All right, well, talk soon.
Big thanks to Alisha for the time, like I mentioned earlier. The article version of the interview available soon over on dailyddt.com, so check it out. And the video version also available soon over at youtube.com/WrestleRant. Now we throw it to my conversation with Mr. Marceau, breaking down the latest in the world of wrestling. Mr. Marceau, brother, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Not a whole lot to talk about this week. We're going to be getting to the king and queen of the ring stuff from Raw and from SmackDown last week. Not a whole lot going on, which is nice. I know next week, and obviously being Double or Nothing, king and queen of the ring pay-per-views. It's kind of a loaded weekend. We'll save those predictions, obviously, for next week's show. We haven't talked about AEW in a couple of weeks here. I do want to ask you about this. Not really Dynamite related. We'll get into SmackDown and Raw momentarily. But yesterday, I believe, was the WMB. I think it's WBD, rather, the Warner Brother Discovery Upfronts. And last year they were expecting some sort of announcement regarding AEW and their rights updates and stuff like that. That was a year ago. People expecting something similar this year, at this year's installment of the Warner Brothers Discovery Upfronts. And again, another year goes by without a peep about AEW. Now, I don't really buy too much into it as far as that being a negative sign for the company, but it's been over a year now, and we still do not have an update as far as them re-signing with Warner, what their future with the company holds. Although people are predicting, and I would predict something similar as well, regardless of what the ratings look like, unless they're atrocious, which, I mean, they're not great for AEW, but they're not awful, I would say, by their, all-time standards. But aside from that, or like something else happening, bearing something like that happening, I think it's pretty safe to say, at least in my opinion, they probably are re-upping with Warner, and they probably will get some sort of an increase. Now, what kind of increase, I don't know. But that's kind of the current talk around AEW right now, and what that means for their future, for Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. It really is more so about Dynamite. Collision was the new thing about a year ago. That was why they included. They didn't include that as part of the new rights deal because they didn't re-sign at that point. They might have just renegotiated for a year later, which is what they're currently doing. But the real money is in Dynamite, and it sounds like they probably will get an increase. But when you hear that, Mr. Marceau, as it also pertains to the NBA as well, because I'm hearing now they won't be re-signing with Warner, at least if it's not official, they very likely may not be. So what's your take on the situation? And you might know more about it than I do, as far as what AEW's future with Warner might be.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with the Upfronts, I think it's something that they do to kind of promote what's going on or what's going on coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, so like I said, I think that's like, not like a telltale sign, but I mean, you think if that was kind of in their future or something they're really proud of, really wanted to promote, they would promote it coming up. Like, you know, like we have this entity so far, like, so it's doing, we're excited, like the relationship's great, da-da-da-da. We're looking forward to, like you said, maybe some kind of renewal that kind of give you some kind of aspect of that, but it seemed like we got nothing there. I'm hearing, like you said, I don't think they're re-signing with the NBA on TNT. It sounds like they might go to NBC. So still interested here in that. I know they're actually getting back into NASCAR next year.
Interesting.
So they were in NASCAR probably 10, 15 years ago, got out, and it sounds like they are going back next year for 5 races. And their 5 races that they're going to have is going to be like an in-season tournament kind of thing for NASCAR, because they usually get where the dates that they're getting are like in the middle of the year where not that there's nothing going on, but I mean, I guess there's nothing going on because the playoffs don't happen to the end of the season. So I guess they're going to have some kind of in-season tournament. All their 5 races will be on, I think, either True TV or TNT or Max, and it's like that. Their 5 races will mean something, I guess. And I know Dale Jr. Will be commentating for them, so I know that's what they're doing. It seems like I'm not sure exactly what else is in their plans right now, but I know going to NASCAR is definitely different from what they've done the last couple of years.
Where's NASCAR currently, on Fox?
NBC and Fox.
Okay. So kind of like WWE.
So next year they'll be on Fox. 5 races will be on Prime, which they've never done, obviously. 5 races will be on either TNT or True TV or Max, and then the next 13 will be on NBC, I believe. So it'll be 13 on Fox, 5 on Prime, 5 on Turner, and then 13 on NBC.
I'm just going off of what I've seen on Twitter and stuff like that. But if the NBA does leave Warner, where would they go? Like, what network do you think they would sign with, or do you think it would be like a hybrid streaming service type thing as well?
I'm hearing NBC. NBC had basketball, I think in like the mid to late 90s, and then early 2000s kind of gave it up. I don't know, it seems like a lot of these big networks are trying to figure out what they want to do, especially with sport rights. I feel like they're huge right now. I don't know if you saw yesterday, Netflix will be airing some NFL games next year, which will be the first time ever.
I did not see that. That's interesting.
Yeah, they're hosting the two games that are on Christmas next year will be exclusively on Netflix. So I think that networks they're trying to figure out what they're doing, because it sounds like Prime and Netflix are really starting to get into the sports world. So maybe they're just trying to figure out what Raw's going to Netflix, so I think they're trying to figure out what they need to do. But I don't know. It sounds like streaming's kind of starting to really creep in on network TV.
And that's already been happening for a while now, right? Again, I'm not an avid football watcher, but I had heard games being on like Disney Plus and stuff like that, like you said, Prime, Peacock. So this has been something that's been going on for at least the last little while.
Yeah, I know. So last year, I don't know if it was last year. I think it was last year. I think last year was the first year that Thursday Night Football, which used to be on, I think they switched it with Fox and NBC, similar to like NASCAR. I think it was like the first 9 games were on Fox or NFL Network, and the next 9 were on NBC. But last year was the first year that Thursday Night Football was only on Prime. And then I think at the end of the season, maybe it was Thanksgiving or Christmas again. I don't remember the days, but I think the last two Sunday Night Football or whatever stuff was supposed to be in like that kind of category, those are only on Peacock.
Peacock
and I think
exclusive,
next year, like a playoff game is only on Peacock. I don't know. They are going, so they are definitely going the streaming route. But I think like the Netflix and Prime. I mean, at least Peacock's still a branch off of NBC. Obviously, Netflix and Prime are two different companies. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting.
You don't think there's a chance that, going back to the AEW thing, that there's a chance that they kind of go the Raw route by signing with one of these streaming services, by making one of the shows exclusive to like not Netflix, obviously, because Raw is going to be on there, but something like that. I know Max is obviously a Warner property, but I think if you're going to be airing on Max, at that point you might as well just be airing on TNT. I feel like you would probably have more exposure that way. I don't think Dynamite is nearly established enough to go to a streaming service to where people would flock over, pay $10 a month to watch Dynamite on Prime or whatever it might be. And I'm not even sure what service they would be able to get. Again, Max would be one thing, but at that point, why not just air it on TNT? But do you think that's a possibility, or do you think that odds are they probably will just stay right where they're at right now?
Yeah, I think they'll stay on television. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly. Like I said, I feel like Warner Bros. Discovery, they've made like a lot of different moves lately, so it's kind of interesting to see what they do next. Like I said, NBA on TNT was pretty much their biggest property they've had, and I don't even know. Like that was like kind of their thing. Like they were known for the NBA, and obviously they got hockey this year, which I think that's probably they'll stick with that. But I don't know. Like I said, I think these networks are starting to really look at sports and seeing like what we need to invest money and what we don't. I know the person that like brought AEW to TNT is no longer there, so who knows what's going on in that aspect. But no, I think realistically, if I had to say, I think they stay on TNT or TBS, but I think not being in the upfronts is kind of confusing. From like the company should be promoting them more. If you're like, I don't know, if I bought something or owned something, was going to re-up it, I think I'd promote like, oh yeah, like this is what we're doing. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's a big deal, but I think you'd want to like shine light on it.
You would think, especially if it's one of their top, performing shows on the network and whatnot. I mean, not even money related, which I already asked you about, but if and when the NBA does leave, it might have already been made official. I'm not sure, but if and when it does leave, TNT and TBS and stuff like that, you said that they might be bringing in, or they will be bringing in NASCAR. Does that affect AEW at all? Because I know currently, at least not Dynamite. Dynamite used to be affected by it. They would air it sometimes. I remember that one summer a few years ago where it was on fucking Saturdays for like a month, and it completely ruined the momentum of the show. Because like if you don't get into a regular rhythm of watching the show on a regular day, it really hurts the ratings long term, and it can have a great effect on like the storylines and the hype and buzz around the product and whatnot. They haven't had that issue in a while. Now Rampage is affected almost every single week right now, as is Collision, but Dynamite has not been. If they bring in NASCAR and boot the NBA, do you think the shows, if they stay right where they are on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays respectively, will be affected at all going forward? Because I know they always used to have to accommodate the NBA stuff.
I mean, NASCAR is usually during the day, so I don't think so. It's usually on the weekend, so I don't think so. I'm not sure exactly if they're covering the Xfinity Series, which is usually on Saturday. I don't know. I know for a fact they're covering the Cup Series on Sunday, so I don't think it would affect anything. So I think, if anything, it would be less schedule conflicts than what they have right now with the NBA and NHL.
That makes sense. Yeah, I would expect a deal to be announced at some point within the next couple of months. Again, I think, one last thing on this, I think it would be pretty important as part of this new deal, and I'm kind of shocked it hasn't happened yet. I think it's pretty imperative that, even as someone, like, obviously, I'm biased through the Bleacher Report app, even with the Bleacher Report app, it's had a lot of issues for a lot of people. There's been a lot of negative buzz around AEW having their pay-per-views on that service. It just doesn't work for a lot of people. I've never had issues, but again, I'm biased. At least, they are now offering it through, like, Fight TV, which is now Triller TV. They offer it through, I think, traditional pay-per-view and other outlets and whatnot, or you can buy the shows. But I'm pretty shocked that by this point in time, they currently do not offer the AEW pay-per-views live on Max, which they apparently do have up and running with sports. Again, I'm not overly familiar with that, but from what I know, they do have stuff already live performing on Max, and AEW pay-per-views are not one of them. You would think they would have had the AEW pay-per-views first to kind of use as a guinea pig for their other products and sports and whatnot, but that just hasn't happened yet. Do you think that's inevitable? At what point do you think we might see AEW pay-per-views end up there?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think if they renew, I think that would make the most sense. I know that I guess if you don't have cable, you can watch like any game that's on TNT or TBS on Max right now for like the NBA or NHL playoffs. So someone said that the other day, like, oh, I don't have cable, but I have Max, and I was able to watch like the Celtics game because it was on TNT. So I guess you can watch like basically live sports on Max if it's on TNT or TBS. So like I said, I think if they renew, they'll go to Max. I mean, obviously, I don't think it helped like when AEW kind of started. Max was, I mean, I don't know if it wasn't a thing yet, but it wasn't to like obviously what like these streaming services are now with like live programming. So maybe when they first made the deal, Bleacher Report seemed more of a
made more sense,
viable option. I mean, I'm not sure exactly. It wasn't like Bleacher Report was really streaming a lot either at the time, but I think realistically, if they re-sign with Warner, I think going to Max would make the most sense.
I think so, especially if a lot of people already have Max. I mean, again, I have never had to do this because I've already had it through Bleacher Report and whatnot, but people paying $50 for these pay-per-views. And it's not even as if, and again, I understand the argument when you have 4 pay-per-views a year and they're quality shows. I can understand that. The shows are usually very well worth it. I thought Dynasty was a great show. Revolution was great. World's End, I was at that show, but not so much. Not exactly a worth pay-per-view with buying, at least in my opinion. But, you know, people are paying $50 for these pay-per-views. And they just announced a few weeks ago their pay-per-view schedule for the remainder of the year. In addition to Double or Nothing next weekend, they have Forbidden Door in June. In August, they have, I think, 2 pay-per-views, actually. Well, technically it's September 1st, but they have All In, All Out. They have the Wrestle Dream show and World's End again, and Full Gear. So they have like 9 total pay-per-views this year, if not 10. I think it's 9. I'm pretty sure, because they didn't have one in January, February, and they don't have one in July. So I think it's 9 pay-per-views this year, which is a lot if you're paying $50 to $60 for each of these events. So just doing it on Max, which a lot of people have anyway, and if you don't, you're just signing up for $10, I feel like that makes a whole lot more sense. Hopefully WWE...
Hopefully they don't make you pay for, hopefully it's not like a double paywall and they make you purchase it through Max.
That would be fucking stupid.
That's like what the UFC does. Like you have to have ESPN Plus, but then you also have to buy the pay-per-view.
God, I feel like it might be inevitable. I don't want to complain too much about what we have. I don't complain really at all about what we have right now, but there is a chance they could go backward in that respect. WWE, that is, with doing that at some point. When their Peacock deal is up and people shit on Peacock, and I get it. I mean, not the algorithm, but the layout and the interface of it is not ideal. But if it means I'm only paying 10 less, actually Peacock's less than that now, less than $10 a month, I mean, that's perfectly fine with me for these pay-per-views. I really do not want them to go to a UFC model of having to pay fucking $70 for the WWE shows, which have been great. I will admit, I've said this a lot, that the pay-per-views have delivered. Same thing with AEW, but even WWE, their shows have also been great. But for people to go back to what they were, of $50 to $60, even with the product as hot as it is right now, do you think that's a viable option, by the way, as far as, not that they would or wouldn't do it, because I could totally see them doing that, now that they're in bed with Endeavor and whatnot. Could you see them going back to that and people being willing to pay for the pay-per-views the way that it once used to be over 10 years ago?
I'd be interested to see it. I mean, not like the shows those went back then were like white hot, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, I know if you have, it was through ESPN Plus. I mean, actually, Greg actually taught me this trick. If you have ESPN Plus, 2 people can be logged in at the same time under the same email. Mm-hmm. So, like, if we want to watch a WWE show, we could just, like, technically, like, split the cost. Mm-hmm. So, like, that works. Like, I've done that for UFC shows. Like I said, they're, like, $70, $80. So, just, like, literally just me and my friend. If I'm not with my friend that I watch it with, like, we just buy it, and then we just split the cost.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, $80, I mean, that's a lot. Like, and I said it's also like a double paywall because you have to also have ESPN Plus, which is $10 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope not, but I think that's where we're going, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hope not. I don't know when the Peacock deal is up. I think it's 2025, 2026?
5, I believe.
Is it 5? Shit, so we don't have much longer with the current Peacock standing. They probably will all want their shows on the same service, I would imagine. Because obviously now they're on Peacock, but they're also on Netflix for Raw. I don't think they would have the pay-per-views on Netflix, but it would probably be No, not Disney. What are the UFC? You said UFC Plus, but where does that? Is that a separate?
UFC's on ESPN Plus.
Oh, ESPN Plus, which is I mean, not Disney, but they're all owned by Disney.
It's Hulu, Disney, they're all connected.
Yeah. Do you see that whole thing?
They're all owned by Disney.
They're all owned by Disney. There was that report earlier this week that Disney, Hulu, and Prime? No, it was one of those other ones. Peacock. It was Peacock, Prime. No, I'm sorry. Peacock, Hulu, and Disney would all be merged potentially into one. And people were making a joke that it's like, oh, yeah, it's basically cable. So, I mean, that's basically what we're headed towards now.
I mean, that's basically, like, that's the thing is, like, they're like, oh, yeah, like, you don't have cable, you just get streaming services. But at this point, you're paying as much. With all the streaming services, you're literally paying as much as cable was. So.
Seriously, for all the shit, and they're all good streaming services, but, like, especially when it comes to sports and stuff like that, you have to sign up for these services in order to watch it, or it comes to pay-per-views, or whatever it might be. I mean,
it's crazy. It's honestly
crazy.
crazy.
But do you think we're at a point now, and I love that we're talking all this streaming stuff, but do you think we're at a point now where it's not that it's coming crashing down, but like that because there are so many streaming services in the rise of streaming in the last 5 years specifically, that we are getting to a point where it's like cable's the new alternative? I mean, I feel like it just comes in waves where it's like they have the streaming services and then it's going to go away and then cable's popular again, or it's just basically the same thing and then we'll go back to each individual streaming service. I just feel like that's the way things work.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think most people, if you don't have, like, actual cable, you have, like, YouTube TV or Fubo or, like, one of those, and then obviously you have the streaming services, but, like, I don't know, we have YouTube TV, and, I mean, honestly, I don't mind it. It has pretty much everything that I like. I mean, they don't have NESN, which is, like, the local sports, so it's like I can't watch the Red Sox. I have to, like, basically watch the Red Sox on my phone, which isn't ideal, but I also, like, I mean, they also were on YouTube TV, and now they're only on Fubo, and
that's
like, that's just like I said. They have their own app that's like you have to pay like $400 a year. Like, I'm not spending that much money to watch a fucking Red Sox or Bruins game. I'm sorry. Yeah. So, I mean, there obviously are some deterrents to certain ones, but like I said, if you have YouTube TV, which is like $65 a month, but like I said, like that's what makes it as much as cable, because it's like that's $65. Then if you have like 5 or 6 other streaming services that are all $10, you're looking at $130. That's what cable was back in the day. So like, it literally makes no sense. Like, I get what they tried to do, but now it's so expensive to have all these things that it's as much as cable was.
Yeah, I mean, because they're catching on to the fact that a lot of these services were not cheap, but they were much cheaper than they are now. I mean, Netflix is up to $14. I mean, I guess it depends what tier you pay for, but a lot of them have increased, obviously, dramatically from what they were. Even Peacock up their numbers, either recently or it goes into effect in a couple months where it's going to be at least $10, whereas before it was like $6 or $7. I think Prime at one point might have been $5, or maybe it was Peacock. I don't know. Paramount Plus one, I don't have that one, but one of those was like cheaper. Now they're all up to like $10. At that point, like you said, it's basically double the cost. You might as well just get cable or one of those type of shit. At that point, it's ridiculous. But that's just the streaming world that we live in. But back to UFC for a moment before we go on to Raw and SmackDown. I guess this is relevant to what we were talking about. You mentioned the UFC pay-per-views. It came out this week following the UFC pay-per-view last week, and it was asked about or at least it was brought up at the UFC pay-per-view during the press conference. Dana White mentioned that they might be looking into doing something where the WWE pay-per-views go back to Sundays, and UFC has their shows on Fridays and Saturdays, or it's just Saturdays and WWE airs on Sundays. WWE will never, I don't think, ever do a pay-per-view on Fridays regularly. It would either be Saturdays or Sundays.
No, he said stupid Power Slap was going to be Friday.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, I'm thinking, like, what else would be on Fridays that he mentioned?
Yeah, he was like, on Fridays will be Power Slap. Stupidest thing ever. I don't understand how anyone likes it. It's so dumb.
The show is pretty dumb. I've seen clips. It looks pretty stupid. Your thoughts on that as far as, I mean, we know Power Slap is dumb, but the idea of them doing that where Power Slap's on Fridays, UFC Saturdays, and as a UFC guy yourself, just curious what that would mean for you with the WWE pay-per-views going back to Sunday. Some people don't give a shit. They don't care if it's Saturdays, Sundays. I think a lot of people don't care, but I'm just curious what your 2 cents are.
Yeah, I mean, I don't overly care. It's not like the shows are on too late, especially WWE-wise.
Yeah.
I mean, I would prefer it on Saturday, obviously. Honestly, I think my biggest complaint or wanting to change would be have UFC shows start earlier. I think that's my biggest complaint of the whole thing. Mm-hmm. Like, their shows don't start until fucking the main event don't even start. The card doesn't start till 10 o'clock, and then you're up sometimes past 1 o'clock watching this shit. Like, I don't know. I feel like, okay, I would understand if it was, like, on the West Coast. Like, okay, you're on the West Coast, makes sense, you were live. But, like, they have shows on the East Coast. They don't start till 10 o'clock. Like,
yeah.
There was one of the last pay-per-views I watched. I didn't get home till, it was the day of daylight savings. I went to someone's house and watched it. Left their house at 1:30. By the time I got home, it was 3. Because the time change.
Crazy.
And Molly was freaking out because I said I was leaving at this kid's house at like 1:30. It took me like 30 minutes to get home. And then when she woke up, it was at 3 o'clock. So she's like, "Where are you? It's been like an hour and a half." I'm like, "No, it's literally been 30 minutes. The time load just changed."
Oh, that's
but
so
like
funny,
I was up to 3 in the morning because of the fucking time change.
Yeah, from 1:59 to 3.
They need to fucking change that. But besides that, that's my only complaint. I won't mind shows for WWE on Sunday. I feel like I said, they don't go on too late. Normally, I mean, WrestleMania, holy shit. But I prefer it on Saturday, but I won't. I mean, they've always been the first Sunday, mostly for me, so it doesn't overly matter to me.
Yeah, I like the Saturday ones, especially if you go to these shows. I think the Saturday ones are better, but again, I think it's personal preference in that respect. I think he said that because, was it just as far as airing them? And I could be wrong, I might have missed the entire quote. But I thought he said that because they would do the UFC show at the same arena on that Saturday and the WWE one on Sunday. So if you go to both, and there is a crossover audience, how big it is, I mean, I don't know, you would know better than I do. But they could do it in the same venue and might be able to maximize, I don't know, I don't know how that would benefit them, I guess. But do you think that's what he was referring to, or is it just airing them on different days?
I think it's just airing them on different days.
Okay.
I feel like if you did this, I mean, I think you could do like the same market, but I mean, like I said, there is some crossover, but like you're just going to drain the whole market at that point if you do like back-to-back shows in the same place. So, I mean, it could work depending on where they go, but I think it was more like airing. I wouldn't think like they always do the same show like back-to-back night. I think that would kind of like I said, like you would have to wait a long time to go back to the market because you just drew from this, like there's 2 different nights of like similar audiences, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, do you think they're not going to have them go head-to-head, but do you think that there is enough of a crossover audience, excuse me, to where they should do them back-to-back as opposed to doing them on the same night?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think they could do them on the same night and that wouldn't make a difference?
Correct.
Hey, listen,
UFC, like I said, also UFC starts later, so it's like by the time the main event ended for WWE, probably like 10:30, and UFC, like I said, starts, like the main card starts at 10, so it's like you could have either another device on for 30 minutes or like whatever, and then once that's over, then you just have UFC by itself. So if UFC started earlier, maybe, but it starts so late, like it's not that big of a deal.
Why do they do that? Why do they start so late?
I think it's just because like I think it's just maybe because they're like I think that's how boxing is too. Like I think it's just like the way the pay-per-view for like those kind of sports have been, like they're just later. I don't know, because it's like they're based out of Vegas, so since they're headquartered in the Western time zone, maybe, or Pacific time zone, maybe that's why they do it. But I don't know, it's always late and it's infuriating.
Yeah, maybe it's a West Coast thing. I don't know. I just never really. That never really made sense to me.
Because I do get it. Like, if it was like 8 o'clock here, it would be like 5 o'clock in the West Coast if people are eating dinner and stuff. So I do get it to a point, but it's not like football does that. Like,
no, exactly.
Football's just like, oh, it's 8 o'clock, tough shit. Like, is what it is. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I guess it's only like, well, I guess UFC is the same thing. It's only like once a week, but I don't know. I think they should kind of, I get the West Coast are important, but like you're screwing the people in the East because you have to stay up so late to watch this stuff.
Do they do pay-per-views on the East Coast often? I feel like they don't, and that might be why. Or is it even?
I would say I think it's pretty even, I'd say.
Okay.
Like, I think the next big one's in New Jersey, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow, the former Izod Center?
No, at Prudential.
Was Prudential always there? Isn't that the new, what Izod used to be? I think.
No, Izod's now a mall. It's next to the Meadowlands.
But the Prudential Center was always there?
Yeah, Prudential Center was always in Newark.
Oh, okay. I feel like, I thought Prudential might have replaced Izod. All right. I guess Izod wasn't replaced with anything. Yeah, good old Prudential Center.
You should know what Izod is. You saw it when you were waiting outside WrestleMania trying to get home on the train.
Fuck you. I remember the Prudential Center. I remember looking around for a McDonald's that wasn't there, so I know what the Prudential Center is.
Ah, okay.
The GPS says it's in that area. I don't know. We still got that's still an unsolved mystery.
Might not be seen again if you go look for it, but it's in that area somewhere. Going forward here as we go into SmackDown from last Friday, we'll get into the King and Queen of the Ring stuff in a moment, but on SmackDown they announced, and I know you feel the same way that I do, so I won't even really give my thoughts, but they announced Cody Rhodes and Logan Paul for the King and Queen of the Ring pay-per-view for the undisputed WWE Championship, and very likely the undisputed or the United States Championship. They didn't make that clear, but it was heavily implied based on what they both said. It is a champion versus champion match. They didn't label it a title for title match. We'll probably find out more on Friday. But that's such a WWE thing to do, where they imply what it is, but they don't actually confirm it because they might change their minds. We can't 100% say, but it sounds like they're putting both belts on the line. I think it's dumb. I know you share the same idea that I do. What do you think about Rhodes and Logan Paul next Saturday in Saudi Arabia for both belts on that pay-per-view?
Head scratching. Why? What's going on? I don't know. Those are the first three things that come to my mind. I saw Cody tweeted, it said both belts, so I think that's what we're getting. Like you said, both belts or something along those lines, so I assume it's going to be for both belts. And I saw the report like after WrestleMania, they basically were like, yeah, Cody's going to be basically spinning his wheels until the Rock Roman stuff returns. Like,
yep.
But like, what is this? Like, why? Like, I don't get why. Like, why are we doing this? Like, why is Logan Paul getting a title shot? Why are we doing both belts? Like, WrestleMania was just, like, a month ago. Like, why are we doing this now? And he's going to win. Like, why does he need the United States Championship? I don't get it. I don't get it. It makes no sense. I don't know. Like I said, it's, like, frustrating because it makes no sense. So Cody's going to have both belts. Like he's Seth Rollins circa 2015, and he's going to drop the U.S. title to fucking Solo Sikoa. I don't fucking know. Name a heel. I don't know. Whatever. It's stupid. I don't. It should just be Logan Paul. Should just not be on the show. Figure out something else for Cody, and then he loses the belt to LA Knight, and we move on. I don't know. Like, it's so simple. I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, people were also saying the possibility of, I don't like this idea either. It kind of defeats the purpose for me. But Cody Rhodes winning the United States Championship, which he did allude to in that promo with Logan Paul. He's like, oh, I've never held that championship before, and if I win it, I'm a Grand Slam champion. It's like, I appreciate the subtleties there. Like, I think it's cool when they acknowledge, like, oh, yeah, you'll make history if you win that championship. I mention that shit all the time. I really don't think they should be doing this now. I really don't think they should be doing it at all. My thing is, and I want to emphasize, I like the idea of Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes. It's a match I thought we would have gotten by now, and we haven't. I'm glad they waited on it. Perfect match to do. Cody Rhodes is so over. Logan Paul, really over as a heel. Great match to do. I just don't understand why doing it now. And it does feel like a Saudi Arabia match, like, oh, it's a big attraction, and Logan Paul's pretty big on these shows. They had him at Crown Jewel last year. He was at the Crown Jewel show before that, facing Roman Reigns for the championship. So they like to put him on these shows. I get it. This will be his third one, I believe. But you don't need to have both belts on the line. Because people were saying, what I was going to say was that you have Cody Rhodes win it, and then he immediately, maybe not immediately, but then loses it to LA Knight. At that point, just have LA Knight beat Logan Paul for the championship, which is what they should have done at WrestleMania. They didn't do that. Okay, I'm willing to wait until this pay-per-view or that pay-per-view. We talked about it, but SummerSlam to me felt too far away. That's another 2.5 months away. That's too far. They really should be doing that match on the sooner side. Get that belt off of Logan Paul. Get a championship on LA Knight, who also feels directionless right now and will not advance past the next round, I don't think, of the King of the Ring tournament on the SmackDown side. I think it's dumb. Cody Rhodes holding both belts is dumb because if he doesn't, I mean, how does he lose the United States Championship without getting pinned? And he should not be getting pinned while he's also the WWE Champion, and Logan Paul should not be the WWE Champion. So I don't really see what's accomplished here by doing this. I really don't.
Like you said, it's another notch in Cody's belt saying he was a Grand Slam champion. That's the only thing I can think of. I know they're obsessed with like those kind of like accolades now. I feel like that's a big Triple H thing. Like they want like everyone to have like this big accolade or like something to hang your hat on. I just think, like I said, I think it's a perfect match for Saudi, but not for both belts. Maybe they'll realize it's stupid. They won't do both belts, but I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. Like I said, if Cody wins, then he'll have to lose somehow. I mean, to lose the United States Championship, and I don't know. Like I said, I think it's just crazy that he won the belt and they have nothing planned for him. It just, let's wait till Roman and Rock come back, and then we'll just continue what we're doing. Like, I don't know. I feel like I thought they'd have a little bit more from him. Like the Carmelo Hayes thing, the AJ was a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting Logan Paul, which is seemingly a one-off. So, like, you think they would have a little bit more planned out for him, but I guess not.
Listen, I'm fine with him as the champion doing, like, the one-off challengers, like with AJ. If they extended the AJ feud, I would have been fine with it. They didn't do that. That's fine. But I'm fine with him doing that as opposed to, like, and if they could do this, that's fine too. But, like, last summer, they did the Brock and Cody feud. That was, like, his big extended feud. It went on for 4 fucking months. And it was a good feud, and the matches were good. The last match that we saw in person at SummerSlam was great. But it did not need 4 months. That dragged on forever. It really did not need to go on for that long. So I'm fine with them doing shorter feuds with Cody, especially as the champion. It's kind of a breath of fresh air because they typically drag out the Cody feuds. So I'm fine with that. I don't know if it's I know you mentioned that they don't have plans for Cody. I saw that same report. That might be true. That probably is true. They're waiting for Roman and Rock to come back, which he really should not be involved with them long term. Anyway, the Rock one, yeah, but not at WrestleMania. It also comes down to they need more depth on the SmackDown side. So my question to you then turns to, if it's not Logan Paul right now, I know you're just going off the top of your head, you don't have the SmackDown roster in front of you. Do you think there are any other ready-made challengers for Cody? Maybe not at King and Queen of the Ring, they're doing Logan Paul there. But like whether it be an Orton or an Owens, AJ again, I feel like we're kind of done with that. I guess you could revisit it in time for the Clash of the Castle show. I don't really know why, because he beat him clean. Bobby Lashley, maybe, Solo. Is anyone really stand out to you as far as being a logical challenger for Cody Rhodes at this point in time?
I mean, Orton makes sense. I just feel like he's so over as a babyface right now, you wouldn't want to turn him.
Or you just save it, yeah.
Yeah, you save it. That's the thing, though. Like you said, there just isn't a ton of people I can think of. Like, Bobby's a babyface right now, and it doesn't really make sense. He hasn't done a ton. Owens is a babyface. No. I wouldn't do AJ again at this point because, like I said, they're already off of it, so I don't know why you get back on.
I think Solo they do at some point, but I just don't know if you do Solo this soon. I really don't want to see Cody and Solo on a pay-per-view. Maybe at Money in the Bank, but I don't. I mean, they're building up the bloodline right now, so I don't really think they would do that.
Yeah, I don't think we'd get that right now either. If anything, maybe SummerSlam, but even that, I feel like, don't love it. But
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's the thing. Like, SmackDown has a stacked women's division, but they're, especially for Cody specifically, they don't have a ton of, like, good heels for him to face right now.
Yeah, there's really not a whole lot of heels. They have Hayes, which they shouldn't go back to right now. They just did the match a few weeks ago. Baron Corbin, I think, is a babyface, but I wouldn't throw him right into that spot anyway, as far as being a world championship challenger. Maybe a little bit further down the road, but not right now. I mean, they have some prospects, but no one that I would do on the immediate side. Owens is a possibility, but you would have to turn him heel. That's the thing. I don't know. There's a couple different options, but they would really have to start building these people up, and that's part of the problem. They have to build these people up to feel like a threat to Cody Rhodes. So it is a Cody Rhodes being directionless, quote-unquote, problem, but I think it's also a problem of coming out of the draft. They didn't really think about, all right, we can set these people up to face Cody Rhodes in the coming months. The Logan Paul match is fresh. I appreciate that. But at the same time, though, they need actual people who feel like threats, and Logan Paul kind of feels like a threat, but he's also the United States champion. And that's the problem. And they're putting they could do the match without putting the belt on the line.
I guess my question would be then, what do you see Cody doing at SummerSlam?
Orton would be fine. I think Orton's a viable option, but because that to me is a SummerSlam match. I think they could find someone for SummerSlam. Solo is also, I don't like that option at all, but I think Solo is a pretty likely possibility. Or maybe Jacob Fatu at that point if he ends up on the Solo side.
Okay.
I don't know if those are exactly sexy matches. Jacob Fatu maybe, but I wouldn't want him losing to Cody. I really don't want Cody feuding with the Bloodline. The Rock thing would be fine, because he is a part of the Bloodline, but he's not the Bloodline, if that makes sense. Solo and Cody again, we've already seen it once. Not that we don't have to, not that we can't see it again, but I just don't like that idea. With the King and Queen of the Ring tournament on SmackDown, they kicked it off on the SmackDown side, the SmackDown matches anyway, last week. They had Carmelo Hayes advance by beating Baron Corbin. Nia Jax advance for the women. They had Jade Cargill advance for the women. Bianca Belair advance for the women in the Queen of the Ring side. Tama Tonga beat Angelo Dawkins in his in-ring singles debut on SmackDown. And Orton beat AJ. So they're really like kicking this thing off, and on Raw we had a couple of good matches as well. They had Gunther beat Kofi Kingston to advance in the tournament. They had, what was the other match? Didn't they have 3 matches? They had Jey Uso beating Ilya, I know that. But what was the other match?
Lyra beat, Shayna lost to EO, and Lyra beat, I don't know who she beat.
Lyra beat Zoe Stark, that's what it was. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was thinking of 3 matches in the quarterfinals. There were 2 each. That's what it was. I'm thinking there was a third match. There wasn't, but yeah. Lyra beat Zoe, and Io beat Shayna, as you mentioned. Shayna. Yeah. So as we look at the brackets right now, let's start with the Queen of the Ring side. SmackDown, I feel like, is a bit more unpredictable. We're speaking a day ahead of SmackDown, obviously, right now. Tiffany also advanced as well. I forgot to mention that. Tiffany advanced by beating Michin at a live event, and LA Knight beat Santos Escobar to advance as well. I feel like the men's a bit more predictable. We'll get to that in a second. But with the women, with Tiffany, Bianca, Jade, Nia, of all those women, that's kind of the bigger stars on SmackDown without Bayley being involved. Who do you see moving on there? What do you think the finals look like on the SmackDown side, and effectively, what do they also look like on the Raw side?
What are the matchups?
I think it's Nia and Jade on SmackDown, and Bianca and Tiffany coming up on Friday.
I would say Jade and Tiffany win.
You don't do Bianca and Jade right now. I mean, I wouldn't, but would you?
No, I wouldn't. I would say, like I said, I think Jade beats Nia, and then Tiffany beats Bianca somehow. I don't know how we do it, but you have her beat her, and then basically you do Jade and Tiffany, and Nia being that dastardly heel that just lost would help get involved somehow, and then that's how Tiffany beats Jade without actually beating her clean.
Maybe by, I don't know, you could do a DQ or a count. I don't know if I would have Jade get pinned, but, No,
like I said, I don't know, something.
Yeah. But Tiffany goes to the finals, though.
I think Tiffany's going to the finals.
You think it's going to be, we talked about this over text the other day, Tiffany and Lyra in the finals of the tournament?
At this point, I think so.
Do you have Tiffany win, or do you go all the way with Lyra?
I think you go all the way with Tiffany at this point. I like Lyra, but I mean, unless you really wanted to put her over, I'd say so. But I think Tiffany's the hot hand. She's not going for Bayley. I mean, I guess you could hold that. You could give it to Lyra, and Tiffany wins Money in the Bank. But I don't know. I just feel like I think it's definitely Lyra on the Raw side. I like Io, but I don't think she's gonna. I don't think she needs to, and I don't think she should beat Lyra right now. Yeah, I think you go with Tiffany. I think it makes the most sense. Like I said, maybe you have Lyra win. She can kind of hang her head on the Queen of the Ring stuff, and like you said, you give Tiffany Money in the Bank. But I don't know. I feel like Tiffany's the right call right now.
I would rather have Lyra and Tiffany in the finals, the exact same finals of last year's NXT Women's Championship Tournament. We saw that match in person, actually, that NXT Battleground show in Lowell, Mass. last May, actually. I'd rather see that match than, Io being in the finals is fine, but who would she then face? It would probably not Tiffany. It would probably be Io and Bianca or Io and Jade. We've seen Io and Bianca a ton, dude. We do not need that match again. Io and Jade, I mean, maybe. I really don't want to see Jade or Bianca win if they're focused on the tag titles right now. That's kind of the problem. I really don't think Jade needs to win Queen of the Ring. She could, but I don't really think it's necessary.
No, I agree. That's why I kind of have her losing somehow to get her out of it.
With Lyra, I think they've done a really good job of booking her so far, and she's not, I don't want to say getting over, but I feel like the Woo chance, I mean, they're slowly getting over. What do you think?
When you're rubbing her up against one of the biggest stars in the company, the women's champion, definitely helps.
I think it definitely helps to have her align with Becky, given their history from NXT, the whole NXT Women's Championship stuff. I think it's a smart way to go, and having her introduce her that way, in addition to winning matches that are actually good. For the men's side, we talked about this already. I was not thrilled with Jey Uso beating Ilya. It's not really a Jey Uso thing. It's just, I mean, again, if we don't get Ilya and Gunther now in the semifinals, that's fine. They could save it for down the road. They know that we want that match. They tease the match. That's fine. I just really don't want Jey Uso and Tama Tonga in the finals. That sounds like a fucking Raw match to me. I'm sure it'll be decent. I really don't want Tama Tonga as the King of the Ring if they're not going to do anything with it, and same thing with Jey Uso. I know you mentioned it would give him an accolade, and that's fine. I'm all for that, but if it's not going to amount to anything, in my opinion, I don't want to see that. You asked me if I would rather see him as King of the Ring or Money in the Bank. I feel like Money in the Bank would be a slam dunk if he were to cash in and win a title, because you don't have to have him win the championship right now. That's kind of my main thing. But what were your thoughts on the whole Jey Uso debacle from this past week?
Debacle?
Though, I mean, people were upset over Jey Uso advancing. Not everyone, but I mean, I was one of them. Or the Cody Crider. Or the,
I was drinking. I know. I saw the Jey Uso wins, and I was drinking all the tears. I mean, I get it. Like I said, in-ring wise, like, he's not the best, which I can agree. I'm like the biggest Jey Uso mark. I 100% from the fucking, but he's so fucking over.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think winning this tournament is like, when we mentioned a couple weeks ago, I was like, I don't think he needs to win the tournament. Like, I think I'd rather him actually win a belt than like him win the tournament. Because like I said, like, I don't know, I feel like King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring, like, I don't know, you should probably be like one of the better workers. I don't know. I feel like that's what he used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like Brock had won it. Like Xavier Woods won a couple years ago. So it's like not like the most polished people of all time, but like I don't know. Like it should also like lead to something. So it's like, okay, if Jey Uso wins this, like what does he get? Like I said, I like when they used to have it. Like you used to get like a title shot out of it. Obviously, they haven't done that in like 20 years, but like that's like you won King of the Ring, so like or Queen of the Ring, so you should get like you get the crown or whatever, but like you should get like a title shot, and then you should then win the title shot. With him, I don't know. Like I said, I just don't think that would happen. I think like I asked you with Money, but I think Money in the Bank for him specifically. I just like the way the stories are going and unfolding going later. I just don't know exactly the way he would do it. That's why I was kind of pushing him to lose, and then you kind of get him and Damian again, and then he beats Damian. But I guess we're getting Damian and Drew now, so that's not the direction we're going in.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think, does it kill Ilya to lose? No. I guess, does it really help Jey winning? I guess we'll see where it goes. But, I mean, I think Jey's super over, and I think it's nice to finally see him get some wins. I mean, he was super over and would not win a match to save his life. So, I guess now they're just feeding us Jey Uso wins. But I understand why people are upset, but I just also don't think we're going to get... Once Gunther had won earlier in the night, I knew we weren't going to get him and Ilya on a fucking Raw match. It just didn't, like...
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I feel like that was pretty cut and paste, so, I mean, not ideal, but like I said, I also don't really care for, like, Tonga and him in the finals. Like, I guess, I mean, if that's where we're going, that's where we're going, but I think it's kind of like I said to you via text, like, it's kind of a waste of the tournament if it's just building on the bloodline, which seemingly is everything at this point, so I was happy he won, but I can understand why people were upset about it. That's
the thing. I don't think that's exactly it. I think it would further the bloodline stuff effectively, but it just doesn't need the King of the Ring stuff. I think you can actually use the crown this time around for the first time in forever to actually elevate someone. Yeah, Jey Uso would be at that main event level, but again, if he's not challenging for the World Championship and or winning it again, which he just did the month prior or a couple weeks ago at Backlash, then I don't really think he should be winning it. Gunther can easily contend for a World Championship, sure, but I would know for a fact that if he were to win it, whether it be at SummerSlam or Bash in Berlin, he would go on to challenge and then win the World Heavyweight Championship. Probably Tiffany, too, on the SmackDown side. Jey Uso, I'm not as confident about. But we'll see as it plays out. If Jey Uso does beat Gunther next week, you can fully expect me to complain next week here on the show. We'll talk about that. We will also predict Double or Nothing and King and Queen of the Ring. Coming up next Thursday, it's a pretty loaded pay-per-view weekend.
Wait, you didn't even say who you think's going to win.
I'm going to go Gunther, but I think there is a chance. I am scared that we're going to get Jey and Tama, which, listen, it's not like fucking Tyrus in the main event. Like, it's not that bad. I just don't really think it's ideal, but I'm going to say Gunther and Orton in the
Tiffany
finals.
For the women.
I think it's going to be Tiffany and Lyra in the finals, and then Tiffany wins. I think it's going to be Gunther and Orton in the finals, and Gunther wins. That's what I would do anyway. I don't know if they would have two heels win, but they probably should.
I'll scrape the pie off your face tomorrow night when Randy Orton loses.
Listen, if Lyra wins, that's great. I have no complaints there. Jade winning, I don't know if I'm too high on that, but it's not the worst thing. Lyra winning would be cool. Jay winning would be silly to me. I mean, I guess that's better than Tama Tonga winning. Tama Tonga winning.
Yeah, Tama Tonga winning, just throw the crown in the garbage.
And again, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. He's here now. I'm excited. It's cool. But again, if they're not going to do anything with him, then it's a fucking waste, dude. It's a waste. And I'm almost kind of scared they might actually do that because Haku is a king. Haku never won King of the Ring, I don't think. But he was King Haku, and that's their father, I believe. So they honestly, now that I think about it, there's a pretty decent chance they could have Tama Tonga win the whole thing. No fucking thanks, dude. Again,
no thank you.
It's not about the person. It's about if they're not going to do anything with the crown, which is what they've done time and time again in the last 15 fucking years, then don't even bother doing it. The Xavier Woods thing was cute because he never won it and he always wanted to win it. Like, cool. They didn't do shit with it. It was a waste, but, it was cool. I don't have any desire to see Jay or Tama Tonga.
You know what? This is what's going to happen. Jay's going to win the crown. Drew's going to beat Priest. They'll do Drew and Jay at Clash of the Castle. I think that's next.
Yep.
Jay beats him because Punk helps him. Jay wins the belt. We all excited. And then we get Drew and Punk. There you go. So there you go. Then he won something. It meant something. There we go. We move on. Look at that. Great booking.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I know I don't want to shit on that idea because you literally pitched that a week ago and I was in favor of it. But it wasn't. You said it wouldn't happen there. You said it would happen at King and Queen of the Ring, which I guess they're not doing.
Well, yeah. Well, that's not where we're getting now because Drew's fucking stealing the spotlight.
It's probably Damian and Drew on that show. Yeah, I guess. I don't really want.
There's nothing that comes out of it. It's stupid. I mean, I'll just say that from the.
I don't know if I want Drew winning the belt for a month after he only held it for 5 minutes, only to lose it to Jey Uso. I mean, I guess.
Yeet.
And then Jay loses it to Gunther. Just, hey, you know what? Give me a run at that point. Everyone gets a turn. In the span of a couple months.
I think I was going to give him a call and see if I can get a title run.
We'll talk more about it next week here on the show. New episodes on all your usual podcast platforms. Rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff greatly appreciated. Enjoy your weekend, brother. I'll catch up with you next Thursday.
See you.
Adios, Bill.
Join Graham, GSM Matthews, and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.